Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joe Collier. I'm not a farmer. I was reared on a dairy farm, like this other man here, and I'm ably assisted in my committee duties by Stephen Pratt down there. And the situation is that 45 years ago, our dads and another guy's dad that's not here today, they got the river cleaned in 1973, and there has been a historical history. There's a historical situation of flooding in the area, and I suppose we started with by accident, where a guy on Storm Desmond came out of the motorbike and he drove down our road. Our road is always flooded. Whoops. I'm not very good at IT now, by the way. But you can see the track of the river along here, right? And the road is down along here. So he just came along and he made he put up a drone and he made a fantastic video, which if we had to pay him for, I'd say it cost about $3,000. And coincidentally, I was on holidays in Venice at that time, which I learned a lot about flood defences in Venice. And I was in the hotel one evening, and my wife said to me, "There's one of the lads is after making a video, and you should look at it online." So if you want to see the video, it's flooding in Shanahoe, Storm Desmond. And Shanahoe is an area between the motorway bridge near Checkpoint Charlie on the motorway and Abbeyleix. That's the area in the middle of Laois. It's a traditional flooded problem. My brother would always say that he'd get 5 floods every winter. 5 floods were normal. It never affected any of his farming operations as long as they didn't last any more than 6 days. But in the last 10 years, it began to be very serious, and when you got a flood, it lasted for weeks on end. And during Storm Desmond, the floods at home, though that picture was evident from about the 8th of December until about close to the 1st of March. So the local farms were all destroyed, and I was actually delighted to see the publicity that was given to the situation in Athlone. So the story is there's an 8-kilometre stretch of river from Cock to Napton Bridge, and Napton Bridge is south of Abbeyleix, and it's in an area of special conservation. We have flooding of up to 1,750 acres of good agricultural land annually, and we can have flooding in February for up to 13 weeks. It's often flooded in April-September period, and for a period of 3 weeks. There was one year my brother, he couldn't cut his silage on one particular area of his farm. He lost 65 acres of silage, 2 cuts of silage. Stephen would suffer significant losses as well in just across the road. We found there was a reduced river capacity with overhanging falling trees and a build-up of silt and debris under the bridge, and the river was last cleaned out in 1973. That's the road. That's the road where the motorbike pulled up. And that road was flooded and blocked for very close to 2 months. There would be the water on that road when at that level, like we'll say, be about 6 foot deep. No, not 6. Sorry, be about 4 or 5 foot deep. You wouldn't get through it with a big 4-wheel drive tractor or an industrial loader. So the story is that in November 2015, Storm Desmond came. In January 2016, we organised a meeting in Durrow, and we invited all the local politicians to the meeting. and we invited. I work in the Thurles area in my job, dealing with dairy farmers, and there was 3 dairy farmers down in that area that had organised to get the River Nore cleaned. So we asked Frank Mokler to come up and to chair the meeting for us, because we wanted to learn from him. So we had 69 people organised in the meeting. We had Charlie Flanagan and Sean Fleming and Brian Stanley and a few of the local councillors. And the big break we got was in April 2016. We went to the flood meeting in Athlone, and I met with Ger Buckley, and we joined the INF, and Ger gave us great advice and direction. We didn't know where to go, and we were a lonely voice, myself and Stephen and Brian at that stage, and virtually the train had come to a halt. So in June 2016, we met with the local TDs and politicians, and they organised a meeting of the South Laois River Drainage Committee and Laois County Council area, and we met for the first time a guy called Wes Wilkinson. Now, we were very lucky to meet Wes, because Wes is our local engineer, and he's a very practical guy, and we agreed to meet on site in Cloncock. We didn't meet in an office anywhere. We went down to the river, and we met beside the bridge in the river. And then in July, Wes organised a meeting with the National Parks and Wildlife Service, Pádraig Comfort, and I was quite worried about that meeting, because I had heard all the stories that you couldn't talk to the National Parks and Wildlife. My brother said to me, "You're wasting your time." He said, "Those people," he said, "will put every obstacle that's in your way. It's just illegal to do anything with rivers, and that's why they're in the situation they're in." But I didn't have that opinion. When we met Pádraig, myself and Stephen, I'd have to say we got tremendous cooperation and advice, and we got no conflict. He gave us advice, he told us what to do, and in fairness to the man, it gave us great heart to continue. So in August 2016 then, we met, Wes organised a meeting in the same field with the Laois County Council, Pádraig Comfort, and this time we brought on another horrifying person called Pádraig Kilfeather. And Pádraig's in the front row here with us today. And my opinion of Pádraig was he had going to come in with the horns out this size, like we'll say, and the head down, and we were going to get nothing done. But I have to say that Pádraig left out his station for us. I could see that what he was asking for was reasonable in terms of protecting the wildlife, and he did agree we had a problem, and he looked at some of the problem on the river. We told him our story. I think he may have looked at the video before he came, but we were in the field that day for about 2.5 hours, and we agreed a plan in August 2016 the way we could go forward, and we were fairly confident, and we believed in that we would achieve something. So at that meeting, Wes asked that we engage with the landowners, because he said there's no point in me, John Joe, wasting my time and wasting Pádraig's time and Pat's time putting something together if it's a thing that we hadn't written permission from the landowners. Now, I could understand the importance of that myself, and we gave Stephen that job, and he set out in the evenings, and he got explained to all the landowners what we were about, and we got 37 landowners extending from Kerry to the UK. We've one landowner, and his name is Sir David Davis. It's not the man that's negotiating Brexit, but he bought a big local estate there in Abbeyleix, and he's the biggest landowner in the place, and he signed the permission once he knew that we were working with the Parks and Wildlife, and that we were going to do a reasonable job. So in October 2016 then, Myself and Stephen Pratt attended the National Floods Forum in Ballinasloe. Now, this was another big break. I can appreciate people being in the dark. The OPW was a big organisation as far as I was concerned, but Ger introduced us that day to Mark Adamson, and Mark told us what to do, and he gave us the appropriate form. He looked at the video and he said, I can appreciate, lads, you have a problem. If you go to the minor work scheme, we should be able to get some relief for you. So we then organised a meeting in November 2016 between Les, or Wes organised it with us, with the Laois County the county manager and the IFA. So at that stage we had all the bodies consulted with, and in December 2016 myself and Wes completed a draft application to the OPW Minor Work Scheme funding for the removal of dead wood and debris, and the big word is the pruning of the trees. We agreed with Pat that the riverbed was out of bounds. I had absolutely no problem with that, because if it's a thing that we remove the restrictions, I knew that if we sped up the water, like we'll say, the bed of the river would look after itself. So we completed the works and we submitted it to the OPW. That was December 2016, and we were told by the Minister Canny at the Floods Forum in October that there was money there to be given out to communities if it's a thing you applied for it. So it made sense to me that if we didn't get an application form, we couldn't get the money. So in January 2017 then, we heard a fellow called Sir McCarthy, another man of good authority, was calling to see us. So we decided that unless we could walk the walk, in this case boat the river, we couldn't talk the talk. So there's the pictures here were showing, like we say, this is some of the timber in the river. It's like the Amazon. This is another tree. This is us in the boat here trying to negotiate. There's a tree fully across the river there is 18 inches. This tree is 2 foot. We had to manage to get out of the boat and get the boat between the two trees and not get drowned at the same time. Because normally in January, Tom DeVessi, our local landowner, our biggest landowner, he said, lads, you're going to get drowned. He said, make sure and have, what they call it, or life jackets with you. So when we started out the trip, we were going to put in a chainsaw, because we knew we weren't going to get through the restrictions that was in the river. But we decided the chainsaw was more valuable than we were, so we left out the chainsaw and we brought a crangeways, a big lad, to cut the inch timber. And this is what we met on the way down to the river. So we could see why, when we finished the journey, it took us 4.5 hours to get down a little small boat, not much bigger than the table, because if we had a bigger boat, we wouldn't be able to get through the trees and up over the trees and through all the obstructions. So this is our local bridge at home. That's our land on this side, Stephen's land on the far side, and over here in the corners, it's a 4-arch bridge. This is what's in the bridge, right? And I didn't know that was there, but it makes sense to me that when you see what's grown in the river, the pace of the flow of water in the river has slowed down so much that this arch has become blocked. Now, there's about 4 foot of space left there. You can actually walk from one side to the other. But that means, like we'll say, that at all times that bridge is in danger. And that bridge was built in 1871. So when you see this here and see what was in the river, you can see what our problem is. And in January 2017 then, Wes arranged a visit from the engineering staff of the Office of Public Works. Sir McCarthy called up to see us in person, in fairness to him, and Stephen and Wes and myself, we walked, I suppose, 5 kilometres of the river maybe, and it came down to a stage where we were down in the heavy bushes down in the Vessey's estate, and Wes, Cyril stopped and he said, look, he said, lads, I don't need to see any more. He says, you've a problem here, he said. Go ahead with the application, he said, and we'll do the best we can to get money. So we really did appreciate Cyril coming out to see us, because like it was getting on in January, and what we were concerned about was that the money that was supposed to be left over in the OPW in 2016 was going to get allocated to bigger jobs than ours, and that we were going to get left behind. But in fairness to Cyril that day, when he left us, we said, there's a good chance we're going to get the money. So in July 2017, the OPW confirmed approval for a grant of 53,500 to be made to the Laois County Council for the works. And there's a bit of pain then came in August 2017. There was an appropriate assessment screening had to be done, and it basically what happened was 2 water engineers, as I call them, by qualification, came up and they were wearing wetsuits or waders up to their chest, and they walked the 8 miles of the river, down in the river, to assess what the story was. And we were hoping that they wouldn't come up with some reason, like we'll say, why there'd be a whole lot of reasons for timber to be left in the river. So that survey cost us 15,000 euros out of our 55,000. But we had to take the hit. There's nothing we could do about it. And the survey is completed, and we started work last Wednesday week. Now, when I hear the I share the frustration, like we'll say, of the people, in particular the ones in Bandon, where they said that they had to wait 10 years or 11 years or whatever. But if we had to wait that long in our area, basically there's a number of farms in the area you would just have to plant. And I don't know, even if there was so much water around the trees, would the trees grow? You were going to be left in an area where farming was going to have to cease. And I'm glad to say that the job has started. Have we pictures of it, sir? We're a bit out of time now, so I think, yeah, if we can just wrap up. Okay. The pictures are elsewhere. So do you want to just wrap up here? Yeah, okay. Well, what I do want to say is I want to say thanks to a number of people, right? Because we were a very frustrated group. We were afraid of this project, not in terms of the size of it or anything, but afraid of the people that we were going to meet along the way that would stop us. And we were concerned about the parks and wildlife, we were concerned about the fisheries, and we were concerned about the lack of concern that we were going to get in the local county council. But I have to say that those 3 people, there's 2 of them here today, Pat Kilfeather in the front seat, Wes here, and Parry Comfort couldn't come, but I could say nothing, and Cyril down here as well. We got the best of cooperation and help, and for ordinary people like us, I feel we were well looked after.